name is Lorraine Sibapelo. I'm a third-year medical student at the University of Botswana and also the Vice President for the Association of Future African Neurosurgeons. So today we'll be talking about supporting the next generation of neurosurgeons and global neurosurgeons in Africa. So this presentation will be done by me and Dr. Arik as well as Mr. Zolo. All right, next slide, please. So currently we have no disclosures. Next slide. So the plan of the presentation is to take you through the background, the communication strategy and education, as well as the research capacity building, research output, post-publication communication, as well as actions inspired by our studies. So I'll be taking you through Roman figure 1, 2, 3, and then I'll give the rest of the presentation to Mr. Zolo and Dr. Arik. Next slide, please. So a little bit on the background. So before AFAN, what I did was that I was involved with the Botswana Harvard AIDS Institute partnership, specifically doing lab research. So this was the only extracurricular activity that I was doing. So now since joining AFAN, I'm involved in multiple projects with the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies and the International Journal of Medical Students, which really improved my learning capacity. And the other thing is that before joining AFAN, I had no experience in networking and handling social media as a professional account. But I learned that through AFAN when I became responsible for the AFAN Facebook account, and I got to learn about communicating professionally through social media. Not only that, I also didn't take part in free online courses. Now I've done around 6 online courses from Researcher Academy, and I'm now a certified Publons reviewer. There's another thing, I used to not have any experience with a journal or abstract writing, but through AFAN, I've got to have, right now I currently have 4 publications and 4 abstracts presented in peer-reviewed journals. And speaking of which, I actually have had research and presentations since joining AFAN, and I've had about abstract presentations to Brown University and Rutgers University. And recently now I've got the opportunity to present at Harvard. This is just some of the examples of the abstract presentations that I've done. So I've also had the opportunity to acquire experience in leadership. Currently, I'm the Vice President of AFAN and the Ambassador of the IJMS, the International Journal of Medical Students. So basically, AFAN provided a solution for me to those, and as well as those who were interested in neurosurgery. Next slide. All right, so a little bit of history on AFAN. So it began in 2019. And it started off as a set of webinars. So a picture on the right is an example of a flyer for a webinar by 2 presenters, Dr. Nadli Gomzi and Naro Bangol. So the association's first executive team actually comprised of the following people, one of them is with us right now, the founding president, Dr. Arik Sydney, and the secretary at the time was Dr. Nadali Gomzi, and the director of operations and communications, who's currently the president of AFAN, Mr. Zolo, as well as the director of research, Dr. Stefan. Next slide. So when it comes to the communication strategy of AFAN, communication with AFAN is about increasing reach through various social media platforms and as well as websites. So the Facebook account now currently holds around 7,136 followers and still rising, and 7,077 likes with around 450 check-ins. With the Twitter account, it has around 641 followers and following around 255 accounts since May 2020 when it was created. The YouTube account, next slide, holds around 297 subscribers and so far 42 uploads. When it comes to the WhatsApp group chat, this is just a group chat for AFAN members, and we also have a Telegram with 161 participants. So with the WhatsApp group chat, we have in display on the left of the screen is a message by one of our members, the Director of Communications and Operations, Darwin September, talking about his journey through AFAN. So I'll just read a little bit about what he says. With the journey I've walked so far, I can only ascribe my sincere gratitude to the ones who initiated such a great idea and platform for aspiring neurosurgeons like me to grow and discover more about the profession, and to everyone that puts in every little effort to keep it going and even become bigger and better. So this is the message by AFAN. We actually did a survey on AFAN members, and everyone quite responded positively. This is just Darwin sharing his opinion about how AFAN impacted his life. Lastly, we have a website in the next slide giving information about the association, its research fellows and activities, and even how to become a member. And I'll just lastly talk about the education part of AFAN on the next slide. It's divided into two aspects. We have the internal aspect and the external aspect. So with the internal part, this is where we have webinars that AFAN members present on certain topics. So there's a broad topic. For example, here we have the spinal course with subtopics, and currently we're running the neuro-oncology course using different cases. When it comes to the external part of it, on the next slide, we're involved with partners. For example, the Young African Neurosurgeons. These partners who actually collaborate with the association and give webinar series of which AFAN members are also invited to. So I just want to give a thanks to Dr. Ignatius Essen and Dr. Beverly Chezaram, as well as Mobile Tango. Thank you so much, and I will now hand over to Mr. Zolo to take you through the rest.
Thank you very much, Lauren, for giving me the floor. I am Ivan Zolo. I'm a final year medical student from Cameroon, and I recently got admitted in the University of Cape Town Global Surgery Fellowship. So I'm going to be taking you through the rest of the presentation. So in terms of research, AFAN realized that in Africa, most medical schools focus on providing the medical knowledge to students, but they less of them focus on giving students the research capacity required for their professional life as medical doctors and as healthcare professionals. So AFAN, and this is usually because most of the schools are overwhelmed and they have a limited budget. So AFAN offers medical students with research abilities. So in AFAN, we have some opportunities that we make available to medical students, such as the AFAN Research Fellow. And this program permits students to have some knowledge on research as well as contribute and publish articles. So on this image, you have the flyer that we made for the Research Fellow program. So there are some requirements that these AFAN members need to fulfill before being allowed or before being permitted to participate as an AFAN Research Fellow. This is just to make sure that any research fellow is actually serious in what he wants to achieve and he's dedicated to achieving his goal. Next slide, please. So the AFAN Research Fellow is basically divided into a theoretical as well as a practical session. And in the theoretical session, the students and the research fellow get to know and get to receive the knowledge, the research knowledge needed, the research knowledge required for their studies. To carry on research. So, for example, thanks to the AFAN Research Fellow program, I got to learn how to build a research team, develop research questions, as well as understand more about study designs and how to carry on literature search. I also learned how to do some data collection, data clearing, and data analysis, and eventually how to choose a journal for publication and how to write a manuscript. And all this permitted me to have 10 publications already, with 7 of them being in peer-reviewed journals. It also gave me the opportunity to present more than 8 abstracts at the conferences, and to also earn or to have a best abstract presentation. So at the end of the research fellow program, the fellows have the ability to publish work and to present in conferences. Please, next slide. Basically, the program permits AFAN members, AFAN research fellows, to do some sort of peer mentorship where fellows get to share with other fellows the knowledge they already have. Older members get to share the knowledge they have acquired with newer members. So on this slide at your left, extreme left, you have a poster where Lauren Sibopilo was presenting on the scientific writing course that we organized, and she was speaking about how to carry on reviews. On the middle picture, we have another AFAN member who was presenting on materials and method. And at the right of the picture, right of the slide, we have me I was speaking about submittology, which is basically submitting articles to journal. This is a rather important activity for any researcher. And this was an opportunity for me to share the experience I gathered submitting articles. I can say that with thanks to AFAN, I've already been able to submit up to 7 articles, though some have been rejected, but most of them got published. Please, next slide. So in terms of research output, AFAN, through the research capacity building, permits members to publish. Here are some of the publications we have had. And what is important to note here is that most of our articles are published in open access journal. We chose this way of doing because we realize that for researchers in low and middle income countries, it's usually difficult for them to pay articles online, to pay the access to articles when maybe at time you want to read an article and you realize that you need to pay a token to have the article. So at AFAN, we make sure that most of our articles are being published in open access journal to permit researchers to have access to them. And we also publish most of our work in local journals. This is to help this local journal grow and to get some more notoriety. Also, we also publish our articles in high impact factor journal. Please, next slide. At AFAN, members get to participate in conferences and present their work. So on this slide, you have in the middle picture, you have me who I was presenting at my first abstract presentation, which was at the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies, a symposium hosted by Rutgers in New Jersey. So you can see how I actually had to mount my laptop on books because to help me to be more comfortable, and also look for an alternative source of light, because most of the times for us AFAN members in Africa, there's usually a power shortage. So you have to be ready in such a way that you should be presentable and you should not depend only on the source on one source of light. Also, I had to secure 3 different sources of internet, a modem, and then I had to get phones of my friends to help me in such a way that if I have an internet shortage, I can always switch to another one to permit me to go on my presentation smoothly. At the left of the slide, there's one. This is an abstract that I presented at the Stanford Global Health Conference, where I was speaking about how to develop neurosurgical research interest in medical students. At the right of this slide, there is there's a picture of Lauren presenting her work at the Brown University Symposium. So this was a work that was done on how to increase neurosurgery interest among medical students. So you see that any AFAN member, any research fellow get to present at these conferences. Please, next slide. So what is important to notice is that in AFAN, we put in more effort in post-publication communication. This is because at times a good amount of work is being done by local researchers, but many people don't know it because most of them don't maybe have internet access to go in and download the work. So we provide, we encourage members to work on visual abstract. For example, here at the top left, we have a visual abstract we developed on a work we did on advancing medical research in sub-Saharan Africa, understanding the barriers, the facilitators, as well as the proposed solution. So this abstract actually summarizes the finding of the research, and this makes it easy to disseminate it. You also notice that the work was published in the Pan-African Medical Journal, which is a local African journal. Please, next slide. What is also important to notice is that in AFAN, all our work, everything we do is based on our experience, based on what we face day to day in Africa. So, for example, here is an article that we did where we try to understand the motivation, needs, and challenges faced by aspiring African neurosurgeons. And we noticed that most aspiring African neurosurgeons do not have information on the medicals, on the neurosurgical centers available in Africa, the neurosurgical training centers available in Africa. Most aspiring African neurosurgeons do not have information on the funding opportunities for their studies, and most of them also lack information on how to go about being focused in what you are doing. So based on this problem we identify, we propose solutions. Please, next slide. As these solutions, we develop presentation webinars where we try to resolve the problem. So on this slide at the top left, we have a presentation that we organize to give aspiring African neurosurgeons the information on neurosurgical residency programs in Africa, where we invited Dr. Natalie Ngomsi, who is a neurosurgery resident in Ivory Coast, AFAN member, Dr. Kabulo, who is now a neurosurgeon, but then he was a neurosurgical resident in Zimbabwe, and Dr. Nuruddin Bangole, who is a neurosurgery resident in Morocco. So they got to present to the aspiring African neurosurgeons the various centers in Africa, as well as the modalities to get into these centers. Also, at your bottom left on this slide, we invited Professor Kazadi Kalangu, who is a neurosurgeon and is a great educator, neurosurgical educator in Africa. He's from Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, but he's based in Zimbabwe. And he got to share, he presented, or he was speaking on the different challenges that neurosurgeons face in Africa, and also the various solutions and ways to face these challenges effectively based on his experience working in Africa. In the middle of this slide, we have a presentation done by Dr. Landry Conan, who is a neurosurgical educator in Ivory Coast, and he was speaking about how to be a good resident, because we through our studies we realized that most aspiring African neurosurgeons, once they get into residency program, they are somehow disoriented because the workload is really important and they don't know how to go about it. So we get to prepare aspiring African neurosurgeons before they get into the residency program, so in such a way that once they get into the program, they do it perfectly. At the top right of this slide, we have a presentation by Dr. Alade, who is a neurosurgeon who is a Nigerian neurosurgeon based in UK. So Dr. Alade was speaking about how to plan a career in neurosurgery, how to get ready for to becoming a neurosurgeon, and this actually helped a lot of aspiring African neurosurgeons to know where to invest their energy, how to manage their time, and how to make the most out of the resources that are available. We also noticed that most of the aspiring African neurosurgeons do not have the mentorship necessary for their aspirations. So we invited a neurosurgeon to speak about mentorship in neurosurgery, how to get mentors, how to be a good mentee, and how to make the most out of the available resources as a mentee. Please, next slide. Also, we don't just focus on doing a presentation, we also try to provide solutions to the community. So in that light, AFAN participated in the Bay Area Global Health Innovation Challenge 2021, organized by Stanford University, where we proposed a low-cost surgical referral system. This is to permit surgical patients, to have the information on the available resources whenever they need it and wherever they need it, and to easily get to the centers that are ready to receive them, and to make sure that most of the centers that are available are effectively being used. This is to help reduce the delay in getting surgical care, and as well as reduce the expenses of patients. Please, next slide. So AFAN also provides mentorship to aspiring African neurosurgeons, and in that light, we permit we permit mentees to be exposed to resources and to make the most out of these resources. So here is just some sort of we just did some selection of some of the AFAN members, and we try to present their work. So at your given that I've already spoken about myself and Lauren who spoke about herself, I'm just going to proceed with the other members. So at your bottom left of this slide, we have Chidebere Ibe, who is, I would say, the #1 Afro skin illustrator in the world, to the best of my knowledge. So what he's doing is revolutionary, because he's trying to bring in diversity in medical illustration by providing medical illustration with the Afro skin. What is important to notice here is that Mr. Chidebere Ibe is not yet a medical student, so he's trying to get into medical school, and that does not prevent him from doing medical illustration and from doing it very well. So you have his Twitter handle, you can follow him on Twitter and get to see his work. It's also important to notice that thanks to AFAN mentorship, you have been able to expose him to opportunities, and Dr. Chidebere is the chief illustrator of the Journal of Global Neurosurgery, as well as the Young African Neurosurgeon Community. He's also the director of creativity in AFAN. At your bottom right of this slide, we have Miss Endale, who, thanks to AFAN, she was exposed to opportunities, and she is part of the Gender Equity in Global Surgery initiative. And she's part of this advocacy team. So she's contributing to permit and to bring gender equity in global surgery. Please, next slide. At the top left of this slide, we have Dr. Natalie Ngumsi, who is a neurosurgery resident in Ivory Coast, and who got her admission into this residency program thanks to the mentorship as well as the exposure that AFAN gives. At the top right of this image, we have Mr. Darwin Sishimba. What is important to also notice about Mr. Darwin is that thanks to AFAN mentorship, he had the opportunity to secure a scholarship that funds his studies throughout his medical school. At the bottom right of this image, we have Mr. Dale Ulrich, who is a third-year medical student in Russia. And thanks to AFAN mentorship, Mr. Dale was able to secure a master's in public health admission in the University of Suffolk, and is following his program right now. So at the bottom left of this slide, we have Dr. Tutuwan Jenka, who, thanks to AFAN, she recently got admitted to the neurosurgery residency program in Zimbabwe. Please, next slide. We also, on this slide, we have at the top left, we have Dr. Stefan Gembu, who is a global surgery advocate, and who also is in the process of getting admission into Switzerland. At the top right of this slide, we have Dr. Regis Takukam, who is a second-year neurosurgery resident in Ivory Coast, and who got his admission thanks to the mentorship given in AFAN. At the bottom left of this slide, we have Dr. Nuruddin Bangole, who is, thanks to AFAN mentorship, at the same time, he's a mentor in AFAN, and he's also a mentee, and he's going to get his fellowship program in North America. And last but not least, we have Mr. Olaola Ezekiel, who is in the process of getting his to get a publication in a high impact journal, thanks to AFAN mentorship and the AFAN research fellowship program. Please, next slide. All right, thank you very much. I'm going to give Dr. Ori the floor now.
Thank you very much, Zolo. So we've presented you with some of the history and present of the Association of Future African Neurosurgeons. Going forward, we've elaborated some action points and goals that we want to make. The action points and goals were elaborated based on the feedback from our members. So our members told us, for example, that they'd like to get more on-hand experience, and that's how we're thinking about organizing neurosurgery bootcamps on the continent. Initially, we're thinking about organizing bootcamps within economic regions. So the African continent can be roughly subdivided into Northern Africa, Western, Central, Eastern, and Southern Africa. And each of these regions usually have an economic region. And within the economic region, it's easier for people to move because there are agreements in terms of immigration. So we're thinking about organizing these boot camps in collaboration with partner neurosurgery residency programs so that we can convene our members so they can get these vital skills of operative neurosurgery, but equally getting to see what these programs look like and hopefully set up a pipeline from medical school all the way to residency. As we grow, we've found out that we need to get more structure, especially in terms of funding, and that's how objectives 2 and 3 are axed around getting more funding for our operations, because we've been working all this while without funding, mostly through sweat equity, as we'd call it in the startup business, but some private funds from ourselves. And as we try to achieve our 5 or 10 year goals, we need definitely to get some funding to get that structure, much needed structure, and actually give ourselves the means to achieve our goals. Other information that we got from our members was to get summer research internships and travel scholarships. So we are currently in talks with some of the better centers on the continent to set this up for our members. And again, here we're thinking about how to get this funded because the centers are very willing, and we just need to make sure that our members are not facing any financial difficulties as a result of these opportunities. We want to get to expand our collaborations to other neuro fields, because we understand that within the continent, the problem isn't only about getting the right skill in terms of specialized neurosurgery. There is a lot to be done in the neurosurgical systems on the continent based on our research of availability. We found that a lot of neurosurgeons still do not have access to competent neuroanesthesiologists, neuropathologists, and neurorehabilitation specialists. And that's how we'll be collaborating with the rest of neuro fields, but even beyond neurosurgery and neuro-related fields to improve neurosurgical care, but equally surgical care on the continent. As we've suggested earlier with the project that we presented at Stanford, we want to work to propose innovations and solutions that will go through a startup branch, which is Ubuntu Healthcare, and we are currently working as well to develop a cheap AR, VR, that is augmented reality, virtual reality platform for African medical students and residents to get exposure to the neurosurgery experience within the continent. We think this all of this should help us get towards a goal. We have 2 main goals. Our primary goal is really to impact as many lives as possible. We believe that we haven't had any success until we're actually improving patient lives. And then we think that to get there, we need to improve interest. We need to increase interest in neurosurgery, but equally increase opportunities for fellow Africans. And that's how we recommend that our mentees become mentors. Basically, our model is built on peer mentorship. And this peer mentorship is just because we believe that a good neurosurgeon is not only a fantastic technician in the operating room, it's equally an educator that has a legacy that has helped people around themselves. And that's how we encourage our members as much as possible to mentor as many people as they can, and to keep that flame of being an educator, a sponsor, and a mentor. We wouldn't have achieved all that we've achieved now without some help. And really, we believe that it's really important to highlight this, because we're standing on the shoulders of giants. The only reason we're able to do what we did is because somebody somewhere was ready to give us a chance. And it's not just one person, right? So that's how we have this slide here of a non-exhaustive list of different people that have helped us make it to this level. In my case, a lot of the names on this slide would be from the Harvard Program Global Surgery and Social Change and other people. And I believe that when one is given a lot, one has to achieve a lot as well. And that's the reason why we're working really hard to pay what we've been granted forward by helping other people achieve their dreams. With all this, we want to thank you, and we want to let you know that you can definitely reach out to any one of us with ideas, projects, suggestions. We are available on Twitter and via email. We've shared our Twitter handles in the slides, and we welcome any feedback. Thank you very much.